guess who the victims were? It was the American people. The debt that was, they said it was a debt that couldn't be sold, and guess what? Nobody wanted it. The reason why they couldn't sell it, because it was worthless. But the Federal Reserve and Congress came in and they bought up all of that debt. After these guys made so much money in the derivatives market, making billions of dollars, so we end up with the debt. Now what's held on the books? It was by printing press money and debt, but now the middle class is getting smaller, and we're not, the middle class is less wealthy. There is a transfer of wealth automatically when you get basic currency from the middle class to the wealthy. If you compound this with the control of the privileged class and add on the subsidies and the bailouts, then it compounds it. This is why the American people are so many people upset about it. They have a right to be. So, but it's very important to try our best to understand exactly where the problems are. Some people will conclude, you're absolutely right, that's why the government has to give me more money, you know, and take care of me. No, that isn't the answer. We have to quit taking care of the privilege and make sure that we have the incentive to work for ourselves and keep what we earn. 9/11 was a very special event, and it was a disastrous event for us. I think there's a misinterpretation on it. I think that they concluded that the only reason anybody would ever want to do us harm was because we were free and prosperous. I don't believe that's the case. I believe there's a lot more to it. I think that there's reason why people could get angry with us when we invade their country and occupy their countries. But anyway, the conclusion was that it was a big event, but there were plans on the books for doing certain things, and they used this as an excuse. The invasion of Iraq had been planned since 1998. Because I remember that was the first time I gave a speech against going to war against Iraq. But after 9/11, they said, oh, it was Saddam Hussein and the Al-Qaeda, and he has weapons of mass destruction, he's going to attack us. Oh, a bunch of lies. And yet, people say, okay, we have to go to war. Just about what they're doing right now, to try to get the American people to accept the idea that we are threatened by a third-rate country, the Iranians. They don't have airplanes, navy, they don't have weapons, they don't have nuclear weapons, they have no missiles, and they're expecting us to endorse their war against Iran. And the other thing they did right after 9/11 was another bill that they had proposed and wanted to pass for many years, and they did. They brought it to the House floor about 10 days after 9/11, and it was passed, it was a revised version. The new version came to the floor. We had about an hour debate on it, and the vote happened. There were no amendments permitted. And this act was called the Patriot Act. They passed it. I asked one other congressman, I was sitting aside when he was voting for it. Guess what? I voted against it. Stuff in this. He said, yeah, I know that's true. He said, but how can I vote against something after 9/11, something called the Patriot Act? How would I explain it to my people back home? And I said, well, that's your job. Go back home and explain it. Now, if the Patriot Act had been called Repeal the Fourth Amendment Act, so when we get around to repealing the Patriot Act, we won't say repeal the Patriot Act. Let's call it restore the Fourth Amendment. To make sure we can stop our government doing to us what the founders of this country and the revolutionaries complained about, and that was the invasion of the king into their houses and using the military to come in and collect taxes and all these things. So we need to restore that. We need to restore this whole issue of privacy. Just think recently. Now, this is one bit of news that is encouraging. You know, that Stop Online Piracy Act. You know, familiar a little bit with that? This was a proposed vicious attack on control the internet. There was a bill in the House and a bill in the Senate. And the American people, many of you in this audience, heard about it, knew about it, called your congressman. And guess what? They had the majority vote to pass it in the House and the Senate. When they heard from the American people, they had to withdraw it from I should encourage all of us, if we wake up and do our job and let them know what we want, it'll happen. Something similar to this happened. The results aren't finalized yet, but last year, not in this current fiscal year, but last year, we had a bill to audit the Federal Reserve. And we got it passed in the House of Representatives. This was a major thing to have it passed. Of course, the President and the Senate, so it took it out of the conference report, but the whole idea, we got that issue on the table. And because of lawsuits and because they had to concede some of the auditing in the Dodd-Frank bill, we do know more now about the Federal Reserve than we have ever known before. And this is the first time in the history of the Federal Reserve that monetary policy of the Federal Reserve is an issue in the presidential campaign. We have a tremendous task before us. I don't believe it's that complicated. I believe we got into this trouble mostly because we have ignored the Constitution. If we got down to business, decided to live within our means, have sound money, bring the troops home, about a year we'd be back on our feet again and be more prosperous than ever before. Better off in some other countries, especially Russia, when their empire collapsed, because they finally extended themselves too far overseas. You know, they got so foolish, they went and invaded Afghanistan. Can you imagine that? And then they got into trouble. Of course, their system collapsed, but their traditions weren't as good. Our traditions are so much better. We had a good Constitution. All we need to do is renew that Constitution. We have. Free markets and property rights and contract rights and somebody. We had all this. So it's not like we have to reinvent it. But we have to constantly remind those who challenge us that says that we're going back to the dark ages. Because freedom is a new idea. It's been barely tested when you look at all of history. Written history, 6,000 years or so, and it is mostly made up of tyrants. And this experiment we had produced the greatest prosperity, the most freedom that we ever have in the last 100 years. We've sort of drifted away from that. My theory is that the people in this country got to enjoy the material benefits of liberty, which is good. I mean, that should be one of the goals, to have liberty, because there's more prosperity. But if you concentrate only on the prosperity and then go to the government and say, how do I get more prosperity? How do I get more things? How do I get stuff about working? And pretending to take care of the poor with the entitlement system, and the entitlement system ending up helping the very wealthy. So this is what we have to reject. We have to reject this notion that freedom doesn't work. Freedom really is efficient. Freedom is popular, and it brings us all together. Now, the reason I'm optimistic about freedom and how it works is the fact that if you're allowed to use your freedom in any manner that you see fit, and you don't force anything on other people, and if you make a mistake, it's your own responsibility, why shouldn't everybody be for freedom? Everybody be for liberty if nobody's going to use force and intimidation on telling people how to spend their money or run their lives or what religion they have to practice or what the other countries have to do. All of a sudden, we all should come together. It's a diversity of people to come together, not because we're going to use liberty the same way, nor should we have to endorse how people use their liberties. We don't endorse everybody's religion, but we endorse the principle of freedom of choice in religion. Why shouldn't that be across the board for economic issues, personal habits, social values, morals? Everybody gets doesn't take care of everybody. The truth is, though, the freer a society, the more prosperous a society. There's no doubt about it. And the more the government intimidates us and all of us how we're supposed to live, the less likely it will be for us to pursue what I think is important in life. I believe, my personal belief is that we should seek virtue and excellence, and that should be how we gain our personal satisfaction. But when governments get involved in telling each one and what you're to do, how you can be virtuous and how you spend your money, or virtuous how you do with your personal habits, you lose everything. And it's sort of like this exceptionalism, pushing our exceptionalism around the world. If you use force, it failed. So the use of force cancels out the whole principles of liberty and voluntarism. Yes, our goals can be very similar. The goals of others who want to use government, they're usually well motivated. I think they're very confused on the principles of liberty and very confused on economics, but I'll give them their due that most of the time, you know, they are well intentioned. But good intentions aren't enough. You have to have the right ideas and understand how economics work, why sound money is important, why property rights are important. If that is the case, then we can achieve our peace and prosperity, which should be our goal. Then we can create this environment where the creative energy of each and every one of us can come out. That's what we need. That's what we had a lot more of before. It was never perfect, but there's no reason why we have to go back to an imperfect era, but we can go back and pick up the pieces and look at our Constitution and look at our tradition and improve upon it, make it better, make it a freer society, and understand this better, and a wealthier society as well. This country will have to make up their minds. Government is a reflection of the people, as I pointed out about how we can affect the government, whether it's the Federal Reserve, or they hear a message, or the internet. But the message now has to be loud and clear. We don't need more government. We need less government. We need more freedom. We need rule of law, and that is the road to achieving peace and prosperity and making our nation great.